For 43, we're looking at this underlined bit, and what does the sentence currently read? Puli and Sokolow describe a more likely scenario. Most people who heard the broadcast understood they were listening to a piece of fiction, but some, being influenced by the sensationalized news coverage afterward, later remembered being more afraid than they had been. Okay, so is this correct as it is? Not really. Just because the word being, it's not very appropriate here. They understood they were listening to a piece of fiction, but some being influenced. So being, you could maybe say some were influenced, but being influenced in this case, in this scenario, doesn't really make sense. So what about B? Some they were. Okay, so this doesn't really work out because you're repeating the they here. It's already clear who we're talking about. You don't need to redundantly repeat they were when it's already said that they were listening to a piece of fiction. You don't want to say listening to a piece of fiction, but some they were influenced. So what about C and D? We just removed being, but it's just a matter of comma. Is the comma needed here? Well, why would it be needed? Let's take a look. If we read on, we see that there's a comma right here. So what does that suggest? That suggests that maybe we do need this comma after all. Reason being is that if you put a comma right here, then this whole portion is surrounded by commas, which would suggest that it is, again, some kind of elaboration on something said before. And that's precisely the case, right? Because we're being told that, so most understood that they were listening to a piece of fiction, but some, which ones? The ones influenced by the sensationalized news coverage afterwards, later remembered being more afraid. So C is probably our answer here. Again, another way to think about it is that if you put a comma here, the stuff between the commas, so again, from here to here, the stuff between the commas should be able to be removed from the sentence, and the sentence should still make sense. Is that the case? Yes. Because if you say most people who heard the broadcast understood they were listening to a piece of fiction, but some, skip, later remembered being more afraid. That totally makes sense. We want this comma here just because it'll separate this from the rest of the sentence because it's just a detail. Also, you can think about it this way. If you don't put the comma there, then it's saying, but some influenced by the sensation of the news coverage afterward. So it doesn't make sense because you would be sort of saying some influence. So you're introducing a new subject and a new verb, and then it goes on to sort of counter that. So anyways, you want this comma here because you want to separate out this portion by surrounding it with commas, which establishes it as just a detail. So C.